thing that I do for my own personal investment is to always put into stable farms or use DeFi yields or use earn accounts to actually accumulate and then earn more cryptocurrencies. And I think one of the hardest thing to do in crypto is really to take profit, because humans being greedy beings, right? We are always like, hey, it's at 20K, it might go 30. I want to take at 30, but then if it doesn't hit 30, it goes on to 20. Like, oh man, I should have sold it when it was 30.
That I do for my own personal investment is to always
take
put into
profit at small increments. And when I take those profits, I usually take them out in stable coins that I can use to purchase more in the future in the event it downs. So let's say in a good scenario, let's say Bitcoin doesn't go down and I've taken maybe 10% profit. I'm just going to let the rest roll. It's not going to affect me too much emotionally. But let's say if I do take profit and then Bitcoin starts to go down, and that is where you have that extra cash or the extra funds to actually dollar cost average and then increase your positions in certain cryptocurrencies that you're looking at. So there are some DeFi protocols out there that I think are pretty good at giving you yields. You can get easily 100, 200%. There are also earn accounts with centralized exchanges. I think those are great as well. So those are some things that I use to prepare myself in an event of a bear market. But during good times, these are still earning constant income for me, which I think is something that I'm really appreciative of, because you get money coming in every other day. I think that is something beautiful to have, right? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Staking is a great thing for preparing for the bear market, actually. Brad, do you have any thoughts on this? I can see you're smiling.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree once again, like Jorden did with me, on a lot of what he says. I think I'm maybe slightly more aggressive than he is. And I don't really think that we're in a bear market. I think that this consolidation period and this last 4 going on 5 months has drug out a little bit longer than a normal downturn would, but I'm still very bullish on the space in general. And because I have such a long-term outlook and I understand how early we are, I think that most people try to time the market too much. So although I do agree with Jorden, and taking profits is definitely a great idea, and it is wonderful to have cash on the sidelines if Bitcoin does come back down, it's also, you have to be very careful that you don't miss the big run-ups and that you're looking at the long-term picture. I'll give you an example. Back in around 1990, if you would have bought $2,000 worth of Microsoft stock, by roughly 1993, these are rough numbers, not exact, but roughly by 1993, that 2,000 would have been worth $50,000 or $60,000. But had you held that stock until the year 2000, it would have been worth a couple of million. And that's how I feel like crypto is right now. Mm-hmm. And if you go back and look at stocks like Microsoft, they had the heart attack chart quite a bit on their way up, just like Bitcoin did. And if you were always trying to time it, so often you would have made mistakes and sold and rebought at the wrong times. And I think for the average person, a lot of times just buying it and being patient and holding is a better strategy than trying to time the markets.
Right. So really the word like hodl, like really doing that.
Yes.
Right.
That was definitely
make sure your crypto works for you though.
Right.
Your crypto has to be earning interest.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, I understand. So you, Brad, have a more like aggressive approach compared to Jorden. I think I agree with both actually. Like if you're not as bullish that taking some profit out and staking is really the more safe thing to do and help you to keep some of your crypto on the side as well. But at the same time, when you really believe in the long term, like you know that you have to keep it in. And so that's why sorry.
It's not totally aggressive. Like Jorden, I was earning interest on my crypto through platforms like Nexo and Celsius and different staking platforms. But part of the reason that I was able to create financial freedom was because I didn't have to sell anything. So even though the tokens I bought in 2018 and 2019, and even a good portion of 2020, a lot of them were down 75, 85, 95, even 99% sometimes, but I was able to hold them. And then when it came roaring back in 2021, all of a sudden, overnight wealth, like you hear about the overnight success. Everybody thought I got wealthy fast, when in fact it took 3 years of misery, but the actual wealth then came in just a few months. But that's, because I had that hodl mentality and I knew long term where it was going, it gave me the strength and the conviction to hold down, through those downturns. And, where so many people get knocked out of the crypto market because of the volatility.
Yeah, for sure. And for some people, it is harder to actually keep holding, right? Like not everyone is able to, but for sure it's I also believe like it's the better thing to do. Personally, I've been holding like since the recent downturn. I just don't look anymore. I just want to keep everything in. But it's interesting. Just now you compared the Bitcoin chart to Microsoft back in the 90s, and that leads me to my next question actually, because before the pandemic, the crypto assets such as Bitcoin and Ethereum showed quite little correlation with the major stock indices, and Bitcoin was thought to help diversify risk and act as a hedge against swings in other asset classes. But now we can see that increasingly crypto is moving with the stock market like it has never done before towards the same kind of movements. So do you think that crypto, that many have called the gold proxy, is still a good hedge against financial risks and volatilities? And what are the pros and cons of crypto as a gold standard?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll take this first. I think that we are going to see the cryptocurrency markets once again over the not too distant future start to separate themselves again from the stock market. I think that there's a good possibility that the stock market is in for a world of hurt. I don't remember the exact numbers, but I believe it's something like 2/3 of all US dollars have been printed in the last 24 months. And so no matter what they do to try to stop inflation, it's coming. And I think that will hurt the traditional markets. And I do think that this is where cryptocurrency is really going to start to shine and going to separate itself once again from the stock market. And I do think that you can take cryptocurrency and Bitcoin and liken it to a gold or a silver as a great hedge against inflation. Right now, I think one of the worst things that people can do is have cash dollars in their pocket. I try to hold almost nothing in fiat. Any fiat that I have is technically in stable coins and is earning me 10 or 15% interest so that I can somewhat hopefully keep up with inflation. Anybody that's just holding their money in a bank account is getting slaughtered right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we can see that with the recent news. What's your thoughts, Jorden, on this?
Yeah, so I do agree with Brad, right? To me, crypto has always been a way to hedge against inflation. So I think inflation has been rising pretty crazy. I think the US is like 7% or something right now. So like in Singapore, right? Our inflation here is like 4%. It's not that huge, but I'm starting to feel the effects of inflation happening to me. Like when I go out my daily life, right? I do feel the inflation hitting me pretty hard. So to me, I think Bitcoin is a gold standard, although it's still untested. But what we know from gold is that gold is finite and it requires a lot of resources to obtain a small piece of gold. And that it was what gave gold its value, right? And over a long period of time, gold does hold its value and is a good hedge against market downturns. So Bitcoin is still pretty new, and it's pretty similar to gold in a way that you require to use electricity, you require hardware, and you require internet to actually mine those Bitcoin blocks and to get Bitcoin as a reward. So for someone who is much younger, I think taking some risk with Bitcoin as a gold proxy or as a form of digital gold, this can be something that can pay very well in the future. So like for example, back in the day when gold was first found, right? Like someone found gold, it's like, hey, you know, you want to hold this piece of gold? It's called gold. It's going to be worth a lot of money in the future. But everyone's like, no, it's just a little piece of rock that's shiny. That's all. And then so I do have a close example to me that my grandmother the other day she was cleaning out her closet and she held a gold chain and she's like, you know, when I bought this gold chain, it's like $50. And that very same gold chain right now, if you were to go to a pawn shop to sell it, that gold chain right now is worth $1,500, which is like a 30x over I think maybe 40, 50 years. And my question to her was, you know, if it's $50 back then, why didn't you just buy as much as you could? You know, it's only $50, right? And back then, $50 was worth way, way more than what $50 is worth in today's value. So over a period of 30 years, you can see that actually $50 doesn't really even hold its value anymore. And I think that if we can buy some Bitcoin now, it could pay off really well in the future. But that is something which is still a big question mark. But I think it's always worth a bet because we can buy fractions of Bitcoin. We don't have to buy a gold ingot. We don't have to buy one gold nugget. We can buy 0.1 Bitcoin or 0.001 Bitcoin. In fact, like you can spend $50 and you could just get a small amount of Bitcoin. And who knows, maybe in 10 years time, this could be something that's worth $100, $200. It could be 300x in the future. That is something that we don't know. But as a person who's a bit younger, I feel that this could be a good hedge for me, looking at how the current situation is with fiat and the inflation and the increasing interest rates that's coming as well.
For sure that we cannot be sure of anything. I mean, even as it's a great example, the one of your grandma's gold chain, because back then they wouldn't have bought more since they didn't think or they didn't know whether it would increase in value later. And then when it comes to money, when it comes to cash, we're so used to using it and thinking it's valuable because it's valuable to us right now when we have it. And we do not think that later in the future, like this dollars in my hand is not going to be worth anything. We don't think that. Meanwhile, when it's something else, maybe like just a piece of gold back then, we wouldn't be like, oh, this is going to be super valuable in the future. Like it's because it's just a piece of gold. But yeah. So talking about inflation, that we have some recent economic data that show that the consumer price index was at the highest level in 40 years. And it's worsened recently by the impact of the pandemic and the geopolitical tensions. And as we just mentioned, the traditional financial market is facing downward pressure, and the crypto industry is also in a currently downward turn, although we have seen some improvement in the past few days. And I'm sure all the investors would like to know, what is a good way to navigate the volatile and difficult market at the moment? And how should investors move their funds and change strategies? Or should they move at all? Should they do anything? Do you have any opinions on this?
Go ahead, Jorden. I'd like to hear your take.
Okay. So yeah. So personally, I think it really depends on your risk appetite, right? So during bear markets, I think there are good opportunities to accumulate, to purchase cryptos that you are really that you really have big conviction for, and you feel that these are good projects that can do well in the future. Or maybe you're someone like I just want to buy the top 10 because I feel those are the blue chips. These top 10s are the ones that are going to bring me my next pot of gold in the next few years. So there are many ways to do this, but something that I do that I've said previously is to work with DeFi protocols, right? So something I do is to provide liquidity to DeFi protocols that allows me to earn pretty good yields when people trade certain pairs on the platform. So as you provide liquidity, you do have to take in some risk as well. So risk like impermanent loss when token prices fluctuate. But let's say if you're doing a stable farm where you are staking a USDT to a USDC pair, you can almost ignore the impermanent loss because they are both stable coins. And there are farms out there that pays pretty good 8, maybe 20%, depending on the different farms that you have. Mm-hmm. But then again, all these do come with risk, and you need to do some research before actually putting your money into such platforms. And you have to understand the whole idea of how liquidity pool works as well. And once you get those yields, right, you're able to reinvest or to compound that yield back into your original holdings. And that allows you to get larger gains over a period of time. So let's say if you're someone like me who during bear market you just want to earn stably, you don't want to take risks in picking coins or picking tokens. I think yield farming can be one way to do it. So let's say if you're really afraid of yield farming, I think there are a lot of earn accounts like what Brad mentioned, right? You have Nexo, you have Celsius. I think Huobi has an earn account as well that pays pretty okay. And this one's a little bit safer for people who are risk averse. They don't want to put too much into DeFi protocols because there are people getting rug pulled every other day. And learning how to use the chain is something that people have to get used to as well, because it's not as straightforward as a centralized exchange. But you do get the freedom of decentralization, but all the responsibility actually falls back onto you as the user. So learning how to use those platforms will have some issues as well. That requires you to do some research.
Yes, indeed. How about you, Brad? Do you want to share?
Man, I love what you said, Jorden. And while you were talking about the yield farming and earning the interest, it reminded me, folks, that most of the elite and the really wealthy people in this world, they're not looking for capital gains. They're creating assets that spit off cash flow, and the asset never gets sold. And that's kind of how I look at a lot of my cryptocurrency. I plan on owning a lot of what I own probably for the rest of my life and hoping to pass it down to my children and my grandchildren. And it's so important to have it creating cash flow. So what Jorden said, times 100, educating yourself on how to make money with your crypto without having to sell it is so important. And during a bear market, especially, because you can increase your holdings, and therefore, like on Polkadot, you can get 12% on your Polkadot on a lot of platforms, but that's not 12% when Polkadot, long term, I believe, is going to be worth several $100s a token. And right now it's around $20. So when Polkadot goes up to $200 a token, you actually made 120% on your money. And so I think Jorden just nailed it. That's what I would recommend. And that's how I would navigate during these kind of crazy times where we're not exactly sure what is happening. I agree 100% with Jorden. Stick with the blue chips. Especially if you're newer to crypto and you don't have a huge portfolio. I think it's important to get that foundation. Like when you're building a house, the most important thing is to get that foundation. To me, in cryptocurrency, that foundation is those top 10 to 25 tokens, like your Bitcoin and Ethereum and Polkadot, Matic, Avalanche, Solana, and so on and so forth. And especially during a bear market, because those are all on sale right now. And save your speculative money for your low cap gems. I love low cap gems. I do a lot of low cap gem videos, but right now is not the time to be focusing on those, in my humble opinion. Focus on the blue chips. And then when we get into a bear market, that's when you can start putting a little bit of money into the risky speculative stuff, trying to get your 1000x. But I really love what you had to say, Jorden. I think you hit the nail right on the head.
Oh, thanks, man. Thanks, man.
Yes, and about the yield farming, is it for you guys, is it more of a short-term play or a long-term play, the way you see it?
So for me, my yield farm, right, there are a couple of farms that I do. So those with higher APYs or higher APRs, right, those are really short-term that generates you cash flow that allows you to stable out or put it into a stable coin to actually generate enough funds to purchase the next coin that you are looking at. So in the I do have yield farms that are lower in percentages. So like, for example, on Anchor, you're getting 20% on UST. Those are long-term plays, right? Because I'm not going to use that UST right now. It's just a stable coin for me. If Luna drops, I'm just going to enter Luna. But on the long-term side, I do have a portfolio of cryptocurrencies that I buy every single month. And I buy into the top 10 cryptos, just like what Brett said. I'm just going into the blue chips, into the top 10. And I do have Polkadot as well. A big fan of it. I do have quite a bit of Polkadot. So with that long-term portfolio, I'm actually reinvesting all my interest that I get from them, and I put it into a pool or put it into a farm, and to farm more tokens, because I think it's a lot easier for someone that has a day job to earn passive income constantly than me having to take time out of my work to go and look at the market. And then if the market doesn't go well, my face is going to be like, oh man, I have no energy for work today. So unless you're financially free like Brad, then, you know, trading could be something that you're interested in. But I suck at trading. I'm going to be very honest. I'm not good at trading. I suck at it. And that is why I prefer the passive way, where I could just go on my day, do my day job, play my dog, go out with my friends. And I know that, you know, I do have money coming in every single day, depending on whichever farm you're in. So I think in the long run, like Bitcoin has picked up pretty well this last week, right? It's at almost 10%, 47,000. I think when it comes to the halving in mid next year, mid 2024, I think probably might be a good time to have some positions there as well.
Absolutely. While Jorden was talking, I was thinking to myself, man, I think Jorden and I were actually brothers and separated at birth. This is the first time we've ever met each other and actually had a chance to talk. But you know, I agree so much with what you say, and I'm in the same boat. So most of my yield farming, if you're doing some of the stuff that has some crazy high APYs, you have to keep a little bit closer eye on it because it fluctuates quite a bit. You know, so recently I got into a farm on a new token on BeamSwap, which is on the Moonbeam network, and some of the APYs on it were up in like the 3,000% range.
Whoa!
But just in 2 months, it's come all the way down to say 75%. So with some of those higher APYs, you have to move them around. Now I'm looking at maybe taking my money out of that and putting it into something else that's high. But on the lower stuff, like, you know, Polkadot at 12% and some of those, you know, platforms like Nexo and Celsius, those are long-term plans for me where I just can, you know, plan on building those up and leaving those in there for the long term.
So I think as long as the APY beats the bank is
like
good,
Jorden,
right?
I'm also stuck at trading.
Trading is a difficult game.
It requires a lot of time and experience, right? You have to pay your tuition fee to the market before you start earning any money, right?
Amen.
Exactly. Amen. Yeah, I didn't know it's you guys' first time talking. I thought you know each other already.
Right.
You sound so comfortable with each other. Well, let me move on to the next topic, which is actually, I would love to talk about this. It's about the Federal Reserve interest rates raise. And I would love to know about how you guys think this is going to affect the market. So recently, I'm sure you all know already, the Fed increased interest rate by 7.25 percentage points. And it's expected that it's going to lift the rates several more times this year. So is the interest rate increase expected to come with slower economic growth this year? And what do you think?
Man, you know, this is the kind of thing that is so tough to judge. I really believe in taking personal responsibility, and no matter what is going on in the world, I know there are ways to be successful and to make, you know, ensure that my life is going to be good. But in the interest of the viewers that are really affected by, you know, the gas prices and everything that's going on, I would say that, you know, unfortunately, especially here, I'll speak just for America because that's what I see. You know, our government has really made a mess of our financial situation. And I don't think there's anything that they can really do to long-term keep us from going through some pain. And I think that's why it's so important to get the message out to people that they need to get involved in crypto. See, when I first got involved in crypto back in 2017, it was to create financial wealth. I wanted to have wealth. Now, you got to have some crypto to keep from getting wiped out. You know, I very much believe that we're seeing, you know, you used to have the rich and the middle class and the poor. And there's a gentleman named Robert Kiyosaki that wrote a book way back in 1999 called Rich Dad, Poor Dad that talked about this moment in time. And it's coming true, where the middle class is getting wiped out. And we are on the verge over the next 5 to 10 years, if we're not careful, of having the rich and the poor, and there will be no middle class. And right now is the time when the middle class can protect themselves from what's going on in the world by buying crypto. So to sum it up, I don't know what's going to happen with these rate increases and what it's going to do. I have a feeling it's going to create some pain, but I do know that one of the solutions, and the only way that I know of to really protect yourself from whatever's coming, is to get involved in cryptocurrency.
Totally agree.
So it sounds like it's quite a big mess in the US. Like, we do get news about it, but
yeah,
I think because we don't interact with people in the US, we don't know the severity of it, right? So like, even in Singapore, the petrol prices are insanely high right now. I think it's like almost 2 times higher than before the interest rate went up and before the oil and gas stuff and the Ukraine stuff, right? So and we always see news about the Feds going to increase the federal rates and stuff like that. And I think what's going to happen is that it's going to make business owners feel a lot of pain, because it's going to cost a lot more to run a business, because not everybody that runs a business runs on full cash. Everybody has to take a loan to run a business, right? You're not going to pay full for a building or something like that. And then all that cost is going to be passed on to the consumer. And then all these people that require to spend money for their daily necessities are going to feel the pinch as well. So I do agree with you that people have to have some crypto positions. But I think at the same time, they also have to do some risk management, right? It's not about going all in crypto. You got to ensure that you have enough to pay your bills and not be put in a position where you are stuck between selling your Bitcoin or selling whatever cryptocurrencies you have to pay your bill, because that will end up working against you. I think you should always have a little bit of float, unless you're very sure that whatever money you have in crypto, you will not be able to touch it for the next 10 years. You're fine with it, then I think that is great. But having a little bit of float to still pay for daily necessities is still pretty important. Unless you are in El Salvador, where you can pay with Bitcoin, then it might be a different question whether you might want to spend your Bitcoin at that point of time.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a very good point. And I agree with that 100%. One of the things that my mentor taught me, all of us are always told, don't invest what you can't afford to lose. And that's true in any investment. But I think for cryptocurrency, a more important rule is don't invest any money that you can't afford to leave in the market long term. And by long term, I mean minimum 6 months and preferably 2 to 5 years. So I'm 100% with you there, Ken. Jorden, you got to keep some money available to live life. And don't try to invest money in crypto that you're going to need back in a couple of weeks for bills, because inevitably you'll lose 30 or 40% of it. So 100%, you're very, very, you hit that, perfectly.
Yeah.
This is a very important point. Very important point. Definitely. And since there's multiple rate hikes coming up, in your opinion, are there still any chances of rebound throughout this year, or will the market maybe keep a similar profile as it has since the beginning of the year?
Well, from what I've heard, and it makes sense to me, is that the government is trying to do a juggling act where they're trying to keep the people happy, but they also have to keep their wealthy elite happy too. And it's a juggling act because they want to get voted back in, but they, so from what I understand, I think that there's going to be some rate hikes, but at the same time, they know that the wealthy and the elite want the stock market going up. And so at some point in time, I think that they're going to, as elections and stuff get closer, they're going to, lower the rates or quit raising the rates and try to inject money into the stock market and get the stock market headed up going into the elections. And so, but you're right, Jorden, you said that, you don't really know what's going on here. They say that it's 7.5% inflation, but I don't know where they get that number. Gas prices have over doubled. My food bill is way more than 7.5% higher. I used to be able to buy a pound of hamburger for say $3, and now it's $5.56. So to me, that's 7.5% Wow. I don't know where they get that, how they figure that out, but there is not 7.5% in any of the things that my family and I are buying.
Right. So I think that what happens here is that with all these rate hikes coming in, right? Borrowing money is going to be very, very expensive in the future as compared to the last 2 years where we're having COVID and stuff. The rate was almost zero, right? So when rates start to increase, borrowing money is going to be expensive. And I think this is where the DeFi space comes into play, right? So let's say if you have Bitcoin as collateral, you're able to put your Bitcoin up as a collateral to borrow up to 70% of it. And there are some DeFi farms that pay you to borrow money as well. And that could be one way that people could get cash flow without selling their Bitcoins, unless you get liquidated or you are over collateralized, under collateralized, and then you lose your collateral, right? So, but I think that moving forward, as the rates go up, the crypto as an asset class may not be very welcoming, because people might not want to take on debt to buy crypto. So we might go into we might just go flatline for the next few months. We never know. And I think like what Brad said, right? When there's things like election coming up, there are someone's going to pump money into the market. Someone's going to make something look good. So a certain party could win the election that they are pushing for.
Indeed, we have to be very careful of all the external factors going on around us, right? And there's so much at the moment. And I can see, Brad, from what you're saying, like in the US, it's like all the people on the ground who are really feeling the burn of this crazy inflation. Like I didn't realize that it was that bad if I just read the news.
Right.
But yeah, let me interrupt us for a second, because I want to announce the second giveaway of this session. So this is going to be a privileged blind box. And so basically, we're going to give out 50 privileged blind boxes to selected users. And just like earlier, this activity is now open for users who are in restricted regions and countries. And if your UID or KYC country is from any regulation restricted country or region, you will not be eligible to participate in this activity. So make sure that your KYC is done and valid. So same as earlier, you can just leave a comment in the comment section, and we're going to select 50 most active users to give you a privileged blind box. And we're also going to include a variety of privileges in the different blind boxes. So if you're selected, you only know what privileges are included in your blind box after you receive it. So it's very surprise. So we're going to notify the lucky winners via the Huobi inbox messages. So remember to check your inbox messages after this session over the next few days. And you can increase your chances of getting selected by leaving as many comments as possible, basically. But yes, going back to to our very serious discussion, actually, which makes me a little bit sad to hear about all this crazy inflation. And I really wish that more people go into the DeFi and crypto market this year. But I know that it's going to be very hard while most people's financial situation does not get better, but more like gets worse throughout the year. And I think we can already see that people are falling back on more safe assets like gold that has been going up a lot, and like commodities and everything. So, but let's stay focused on crypto. And so, if crypto prices do go up potentially, maybe not the next few months, but later on, what are some potential prerequisites for the next bull run?
Go ahead, Jorden.
All right, so I'll go first, right? So, I feel that some regulation on crypto will actually help the market quite a bit, because the most common thing with crypto, right, is like my friend said, so it's magic internet money. You know, it's used for illicit purposes. It's used to money launder and all that stuff. So we will feel some fear when we see like things of the unknown. And being humans, right, we do want to know what we are putting our money into. We want to have some control as well. So I think some regulation will actually help to control this and to reduce the fear that many people have. So, but at the same time, I think for the halving that's coming mid next year, this could be one of the potential catalysts as well. So when you have Bitcoin getting reduced in emissions, and then you have people who are a bit more educated about what crypto is, and there are some regulations coming in, you could see some money moving out of other investment assets into the crypto asset as well. So like we always see like JP Morgan, right? Very good example. They always say, oh, you know what? No Bitcoin. And then 1 year it's like, oh, JP Morgan just bought a huge ton of Bitcoins. And then everyone's like, oh, wait a second, what just happened? I thought they were like against Bitcoin, and suddenly they're just buying a ton of Bitcoin here. So I think with a little bit of regulation coming in, that could help the whole space as well. And then I think the halving will be something to look out for, because less Bitcoin is gonna go around. There is lesser for everyone. So I'm getting some Bitcoins right after this though, but not financial advice.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think a few of the catalysts that I'm looking for, the Bitcoin halving is absolutely going to be massive, but I still think that we have a lot of green to go. I don't think that this bull market is over yet. I very much believe, I don't have a crystal ball, and I don't, I can't prove it obviously, but I really think that we're still going to see new all-time highs for Bitcoin, potentially even this year. I think that there's some good things coming, and then the next halving and the next bull run would really be an incredible leg up. But I think that some of the catalysts could be stuff like if Ripple wins its lawsuit against the SEC, that's going to be big for the crypto market. As Jorden pointed out, we have all these financial institutions that are tired of Coinbase and Binance and Huobi making all the money, and they want a piece of that pie. So you have the JP Morgans, and you have all of the financial institutions that want to be able to offer this to their clients. I think a Bitcoin ETF being introduced to the United States is going to happen eventually, and that's going to be huge for the markets. But I think people are finally starting to wake up when you see companies like Crypto.com buying the Staples Center, and now the Los Angeles Lakers play in the Crypto.com arena. It's pretty hard for your friends and family to say, oh, that's just a, pie in the sky, imaginary thing that doesn't have any value. When you watch the Super Bowl last year and you see the cryptocurrency commercials that got, millions of dollars worth of, ads that they paid, I think it's becoming more and more apparent to the average person that crypto is here to stay. And I do think that we're going to see mass adoption over the upcoming years. And those are going to be a few of the catalysts that get Bitcoin back to its all-time highs, and hopefully $100,000 and above.
100K Bitcoin, man. Let's go.
Let's go.
We're all ready.
I actually attended the FinTech Week of Hong Kong back in October last year. And there were some very influential people from big startups, the big players in the crypto industry talking, and they were asked a question about what value did they expect that Bitcoin and Ethereum will go by the end of the year, so the year 2021. And they both gave some very high numbers, but in the end, it's like completely overturned their expectations. Which was quite funny. But actually, I would like to talk about, because as you said, like a lot of bigger financial institutions are adopting cryptocurrency, wanting to offer this as a product to their customers. And I see like even traditional banking apps on your phone, they can also offer, some of them offer you to be able to buy Bitcoin or some of the major cryptocurrencies directly on the app. But it is less flexible than pure crypto exchanges in terms of what kind of orders you can place and everything. But definitely this is going to be more evolved. But actually, as we see that crypto is becoming more and more adopted and more well-known, we also see on the side the rise of different investment opportunities such as NFTs, which I would like to move into. So there's been a lot of a big rise of NFTs during the recent downturn market. And so despite the grim economic situations in general, that we can see, we believe that there's still some investment opportunities. And last year we saw the NFTs, Web3, DAO, and metaverse as new opportunities, and a lot more in the future than cryptocurrencies, but also still associated with this concept. And do you think any of these will provide a boost for growth?
Yeah, absolutely. I do. The NFT and the metaverse are so exciting, and and they're so cutting edge. And once again, just like everything else, there's that resistance to it. We've all heard, why would somebody pay X amount of dollars for an ugly looking ape? Why, what are you going to do? Who are you going to show it to? And what people are starting to realize is that the real value in NFTs is the ability for the individual to take control. So in the music industry, so often the producers make all of the money and the artists get cut out and have to sign these horrible contracts. And now artists can go and take their music directly to their fans. Artists don't need producers anymore. You can get famous on YouTube and TikTok and create your own brand without needing producers and all of the people that are taking a piece of what should be yours. And the NFT market just makes that so much easier and more available. And there's so much utility in NFTs. It's not just a picture that you look at on your computer. There's so much, intrinsic value that comes with that. And I think that's another thing that with Facebook changing its name to Meta, and just all of the things that are happening, all of the people that were sitting in the background kind of waiting and not really believing in what was happening are starting to take notice. And yes, I think that the NFT and metaverse is also going to be another one of those catalysts that we were talking about in the last segment as to why cryptocurrency is going to, become, worth a fortune.
Yeah, so I do own some NFTs. Do you own any, Brad?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. And I own some property in a couple of different metaverses too.
Oh, nice. So I do have the NFT XC Infinity, right? So I think in the metaverse, the play to earn model is going to be a very strong proponent in this space. So gaming by itself is already like super huge, right? You have all the esports coming up. And then if you have played games like PUBG, if you play on mobile, they work with Sunreal, they work with Tesla once. So like as you're playing a game, you literally see a Tesla building in the game, and you can enter the building to drive a Tesla. So I think these are already all out there. But sooner or later, these are all going to get like all these items that you buy in a game that you're already spending money to buy, you're able to own you are able to have the ownership of that particular item, and then you could sell it to someone else for a certain value, right? And then like in the metaverse where you own pieces of land, people can actually rent out land for advertisers who are looking to advertise their product. So I'm not sure where you own your land, Brad, but let's say if you are on Decentraland, I think you could rent out your space for people to host parties as well. I attended one, I think last week or 2 weeks back. It was pretty cool. Like you see people running around, all of them with the NFT jackets. They have all different NFT stuff on there. So I think NFTs, like what Brett said, right? It gives you an ownership. It's not really just a picture, but it's like a ownership. It's like a membership of a certain object or a certain product, right? So like Ape, was it the BYAC? Is it Bored Ape Yacht Club? They actually airdrop tokens to the NFT holders, right? So people that were right-click saving or they were just printing screens of those NFTs, you don't get the token. You only get the token if you own the NFT. So that is why the NFT is not just a picture, but it's a proof of ownership. It's a proof of membership to a certain community or a certain group.
Yeah, talking about the Ape token, actually, it just recently launched, and it's tied to the Bored Ape Yacht Club NFTs. Which is supposed to have a board, a DAO foundation, and it's for the Web3 economy. And for this project, from your perspective, will the combination of all these kind of elements be reflected in one project? Would that be the next focus of the market? Is that the expectation that we can have?
So I think the ape token, right? What happened was there was a flash loan that happened. So the original owner of the NFT actually didn't get his tokens. His tokens got kind of stolen away from him because he was loaning out his NFTs on a platform. So that is sort of the risk with crypto, right? You do own the NFT, but let's say if you're putting your NFT out in the market for people to loan, for people to borrow, then you do run that risk of such things happening. So I think with DAOs, with Web3, there's going to be more and more protocols coming up to support all these platforms or to support DAOs and governance in particular, right? But something I think that we have to understand that when it comes to owning governance tokens, these tokens allows you to influence the voting outcome. But as a token holder, right, as a governance token holder, you do not have the ability to influence the input of proposals. So I do hold some tokens that have governance as well, and I do vote for certain proposals. And there are times where the developers push out proposals, and we do give suggestions, but then these proposals do not include the suggestions that the community has, right? So it might come to a point where people who benefit from that particular proposal will only vote for those proposals. And that is something people have to understand. That doesn't mean that a DAO means everything is fair. So it still comes down to how much tokens you own and how much say you have in that whole economy. So like Axie Infinity, right? There is a lot of hoo-ha about why are they charging extra fees right now. There are people who don't agree, but the developers just push it through. They don't even put it through a proposal, although said economy that if you have AXS tokens, you're able to vote, but some of the developers, they're like, you know what, we're just going to push the proposal through. We're not going to let anyone vote on it. So that is something I think we have to look out for when it comes to DAOs or when it comes to governance, right? We do not get to vote on every proposal, and sometimes proposals might not be what the community feels is best for the project, but it's what the developers feel is best for the project. And that can be two very contrasting views depending on which side you're standing on.
Indeed. Do you have any experience, Brad, on this, being part of a DAO? And
I do not. That is one of my weaker areas. I am partnering up with a couple of people. I've got a gentleman in my network named Justin Smith that I'm working with. It's an expert in NFTs, and I'm increasing my education in that curve. So I do own a few NFTs, and I do believe that tokens like this ape coin that just hit the market are good for cryptocurrency and the excitement that they create. I think a lot of these projects are going to make people some incredible money. Very important to do your research. And what's tough about the NFT market is that 9 out of 10 of them are probably going to lose and maybe even go all the way to zero. But risk versus reward. If you invested $10,000 into 10 of these different plays and 9 of them go to zero, but the last 100 X's, you're really not all that upset about the 90,000 that you lost when the last 10,000 turned into $1 million. And that's kind of what you have to do with these NFT plays, is mitigate your risk by getting involved in several different projects. Don't go all in. Take a small percentage and stuff. But yeah, I think that this kind of stuff is going to be exciting. And I think it is going to help the cryptocurrency market. I've got a business associate that does a lot of live real estate, and he's getting so excited about the metaverse. He bought some mutant apes, and I believe he said he spent $30,000 back a while ago when they were worth less. He spent $30,000 on some mutant apes. His airdrop that he just got, he was able to sell for over $100,000, and he still owns the mutant apes, and they're worth 10 times what he paid for them now too. So he's got a combination of the capital gains if he wanted to sell them, and he's got the passive income from the airdrops. So I think that they're going to be fantastic for the market. You just have to be careful and really do your research and educate yourself on what's going to be good.
definitely. We see overwhelming amount of new NFT projects, new DAOs coming into the DeFi space, and it's very difficult. Like because even just joining one DAO takes up a lot of research and time, and I think it's something that we shouldn't be joining like a lot of DAOs and just it's impossible to be active in all of them. And I agree that research is super important in this aspect, in this kind of market, because it's different than the pure cryptocurrency. Like this is something that's differently created and has different kind of value. And like you said, there are some risks and also a lot of opportunities as well. But definitely, in my opinion, also from my experience, I can tell that research is the most important thing to do with NFTs and these kind of projects. So I'd like to move on because we're running out of time soon. My last topic is about the wider cryptocurrency adoption by governments. Because in the past few weeks, we saw some movements from the government side on crypto-related legislation. There's the Australian government that's trying to regulate cryptocurrencies as part of an overhaul to the payment systems in Australia. In Europe, the EU has recently rejected a proposed rule that could have banned the cryptocurrency Bitcoin across the bloc, but set some new draft rules to protect consumers and make mining more sustainable. And in the US, we also have Biden that recently passed that had some news on the crypto legislation. So I would like to know what you guys thinking on regulation in the crypto industry. Is this a good thing? What implications can it bring to the industry? And Brad, I would love for you to tell us about the US situation. Oh, sure, Jorden, you can go first.
Yeah. So I'll talk about the Southeast Asia, right? Since I'm based here. So like I think 2 weeks back, Singapore government actually imposed they actually spoke in Parliament about taxing NFTs, right? So this raises a few questions like how are you going to know who owns which NFTs? And how are you going to tax NFTs? Because different NFTs have different purposes. They have different usage as well. So but I think having crypto being spoken about in Parliament it's a pretty good thing. It can work as a double-edged sword because when it comes into Parliament, it means that they might want to do some taxation on it. So, but they are on the other side of the sword is that they are beginning to accept that hey, there is this thing around. We cannot just like cover an eye and not look at it. It's there. People are doing it already. So that as we move on, like in Malaysia, right, the government also spoke about legalizing crypto as a legal tender in Malaysia, which is pretty big. So Malaysia is like 300 million in population. Singapore's only 5. So if they're going to legalize crypto there, I think that will bring in quite a bit of people joining the crypto space as well. So I think in the US you have like maybe 400-500 million people, and just in Southeast Asia region there's like a lot more people who have not heard about crypto or have not touched crypto at all. So like just some numbers here, right? So like Vietnam is like 6%. Only 6% of Vietnamese owns cryptocurrencies. 3% in Malaysia, 4% in Philippines, 5% in Thailand, and 10% in Singapore. So Singapore is pretty small. 10% here is like 500,000 people. It's not a lot of people, but I think as we move on further and further as time goes by, people begin to accept crypto. Like, hey, there is literally something called Bitcoin. There's something called crypto. It's no longer a magic internet money. People are actually earning money from it. People are actually getting rich from it. So I think having regulations will help because regulations kind of legitimize Bitcoin in some sense. It tells like if the government were to accept Bitcoin and to people is going to be like, oh, the government accepts it, so I think it's kind of legal. I can put some money in there as well. So how about the US, Brad?
Yes.
Well, I agree that some regulation, it would be nice a little bit. I think it's a double-edged sword, though. You have to be careful because especially here in the United States, so much of the regulation ends up benefiting the elite. And, just like, here in America, in order to invest in a lot of the better investments, you have to be what's called an accredited investor. And the Security and Exchange Commission created these laws, and it's all based on they want to protect us citizens. They don't want us to lose our money But when it really comes down to it, that's all a facade. What they wanted to do was make it to where their elite friends and the people that were padding their pockets had the exclusive access to this stuff. So that's one of the things that I love about cryptocurrency, is that it's a level playing field. And although I would like to see some regulation to make it safer and to make more people comfortable coming into the market, I'm a little leery of too much regulation, because if they make it to where the average hardworking middle class people can't invest in it any longer, then that would be a tragedy. So I think that some regulation would be great, but I think we got to be careful. And I think that's the other reason it's important for people to really understand now is the time to get in. The other thing that will eventually happen, just like Microsoft back in the 90s and into the 2000s created immense wealth for people that invested in it. Today, Microsoft is so big that you can still invest in it and make a little bit of money, but you're never going to get wealthy investing in Microsoft unless you already started with a big chunk of money. But if you want to be able to take, like my mentor did, 9,500 and turn it into 2.2 million, you want to get in now while it's unregulated, while it's still a little bit of wild, wild west. Once the regulation comes in and the market matures, there will still be gains to be made, but there won't be the life-changing wealth that you can create over just a short period of time available to the average person anymore.
Okay, my question now is, how much time do we have? Is 2022 going to be the government crypto adoption year, or do we still have time? What do you think?
I think we have some time. I do think that this is a maturing market that's going to take 5, 10, 15, 20 years to really totally mature. But the sooner you can get in and get started, absolutely the better.
Yeah. Right. So like what Brad said, right? We do have time, but the funny thing is that now Bitcoin's at 47, no one's gonna buy it. But when Bitcoin goes to like 80,000, everyone's gonna jump in on it. It's like, I'm gonna buy some Bitcoin. Like, I mean, if you already set your mind on buying it, why not buy it now, right? If it goes up to 80K, you make some money. If it goes down, you just gotta hodl a little longer. So I think we do have some time, but looks like some governments are like really pushing hard to get crypto recognized or regulated in some sense as well.
Yes, but that seems to be the case in smaller economies, like in the very large, like the US, the EU. We haven't seen this kind of approach yet by the government. And usually when new orders or laws pass, it takes a very long time anyway. So even they're already talking about it now, but it's not going to be on for like maybe another few years, as you mentioned, just like everything else, right? And so, yeah, actually, that was my last question. I really love talking to you guys. You guys are so knowledgeable, and I feel like I have so much to learn from you. I'm still like very young and just much more new to crypto than you guys are. But I think it's so interesting, and hearing you guys talk is very inspiring, and actually like makes me want to buy Bitcoin right now. Even, but yeah, so
buy it.
Okay. I mean, I cannot say no to this. I know there are still people that are not convinced, and this is not a conversation to like convince people on buying Bitcoin. This is more like discussing about the values behind this and helping people understand this new technology, because there's still a lot of people confused about this, especially newer things like the NFT part. Like we haven't even gone into depth about it, and we would need to do more research if we want to have a talk about NFTs and all these other new investment opportunities. But for me, like personally, and I think for you guys, what really like the main thing right now that we could focus on would be the cryptocurrencies and the value we can get out of this and what it's going to bring us in the next few years. So I think this was really good advice, and I think we got a clearer picture of how to navigate this crypto market at the moment, because there's been a lot of doubts recently with the recent downturn that's been lasting a few months already, and a lot of people still not convinced because Bitcoin is still too expensive. I think Bitcoin will always be too expensive. The thing is just, if you made up your mind, like Jorden said, just go for it, right? So I don't know if you guys have any closing comments before I end the live.
Subscribe to Brad.
I've got a couple. I got a couple of quick closing comments, folks. So now that you've heard all of this, it's kind of, you have a decision to make, at those of you that are watching. And I would just recommend educating yourself. So here in America, they don't teach us anything about money in the school system. I have a daughter that just graduated from high school, getting ready to go off to college. And the only thing that she knows about finances is what her and her mom have taught us, or what I and her mom have taught her. And that's part of the reason that people are struggling right now. So there's a lot of stuff going on in the economy that's going against people. But the fact of the matter is most people, they spend all they make and more. And the wealthy do something a little bit different. So the wealthy make their money, they invest it, and then they spend what's left. Where the poor and the middle class make their money and they spend it, and then if they have any left, maybe they invest it. And so the biggest thing that I work on my YouTube channel is I can help people make money, but your mindset is more important. So we've all seen lottery winners and movie stars and sports stars that make hundreds of millions of dollars and end up broke and worse off than they were. And so my YouTube channel, and what I really focus on, is how to create long-term wealth. And that all starts with your mind. You have to start thinking like a wealthy person. You have to start thinking, long-term. So I just implore you all to educate yourself, do your own due diligence. Instead of coming home from work, I know you're tired, you work hard all day, but instead of coming home and sitting back on the couch and watching Netflix, hop on your computer, watch some YouTube videos, educate yourself about this cryptocurrency market and get yourself out of that rat race by starting to increase your knowledge and invest in this incredible market.
So I totally agree with Brad, right? I think so there's a difference between rich and wealthy. I think everybody has to know that. It's not like this guy is rich, there is rich and there is wealthy as well. So the rich will buy stuff, right? Buy liabilities, and then the wealthy are the ones that buy assets to actually increase their net worth, and they put their money to work for them. So I think having the mindset of becoming wealthy is more important than becoming rich, and you don't have to wait until you have like 10,000 to start your first investment. So I think crypto right now, there is a lot of opportunities because you're able to buy like $100 of Bitcoin. You're able to buy $50 of Ether. You're able to buy $10 of CRO if you want. There is a lot of things that you can buy with very, very little capital. And if you're afraid, you could just put maybe $50 every single month from your paycheck to just buy a small amount of Bitcoin. Whichever exchange you use, I think most exchanges are pretty good. But since we're on Huobi Live, you have to use Huobi, right?
Amen.
So I think like $50 a month is something that you could just put out every single month to get some skin in the game. So once you get skin in the game, you will then start to do research. You start to learn more. And let's say if Bitcoin really fails and goes to zero, at least you learn that there's a technology called blockchain. Cryptocurrencies have failed, but blockchain as a technology didn't fail because it's still running. Governments are using it as well. So I think having that mindset, like what Brad said, is very, very important. And do subscribe to Brad. Infinite Crypto.
Likewise, I am going to be your next subscriber, Jorden, and I definitely recommend everybody watching this show go get on there and watch some of your videos. You've got some great content there. I was looking at it before the show started, and man, you've got some amazing content that people need to be looking at.
Oh, yes, thanks, man. Yours too.
Great, yeah, very educational and very helpful videos from Jorden.
And Diane, thank you. You did a great job hosting the show today. You were fantastic. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for coming. This on our very first session of Huobi Live is the great. So thank you so much for your closing comments. And let me just say, Huobi Live, we're going to invite more industry leaders, influencers, and experts And we're going to host a diversified portfolio of programs from market analysis, investment strategies to educational and entertaining programs. So there's more to come every day. Please stay tuned with us, and I'm looking forward to seeing everyone in the next session. Thank you so much, Jorden and Brad, for being here today. It was a great session.
My honor.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.